Alright, so what we're doing, we're going to change this top radiator shroud, or the whole shroud I guess, all the belts, and all the hoses, and the thermostat. So we're going to, I think we'll start by draining the coolant, and we'll kind of work our way that way. Um, Drain the coolant, take the top radiator hose off, um, take the fan off, unbolt the shroud here, pull the shroud out, get the bottom radiator hose off, take the belts off, put the belts on, and then reverse order. I think that will be the easiest way to do everything. I have another shroud to put on here, so we're going to go ahead and swap it out while we're doing all this, because it's going to be a whole lot easier to do the belts with the shroud off. If you were just doing the belts, I would say leave the shroud on. There's no reason to take the shroud and the fan off just to do the belts. You can get the belts around the fan, but since I'm changing the shroud, we're going to do it all at once. Make things a little easier. Oh, and I think while I'm doing that, I'm going to pull a vacuum on the AC system. So let's get that started. And this is why I do maintenance on stuff that's been sitting a long time. Look at this thing. You think that was going to hold very long? And of course I just touched this thing and it broke off. So I gotta try to find a thermostat housing and one of these vacuum switches. So let me see what I've got here. Maybe I've got something here. So I looked through all my stuff and I found this. It's perfect. And it's like in perfect shape too. It's a cast iron. This one's aluminum. Other than that, they're identical. They've got the same ports. They're oriented the same way. It's perfect. So this one's going back on there. I just need to try to find this vacuum. I guess you'd call that a vacuum temperature switch. So I got to try to find one of those. And I'll put these fittings on here. So let me see if I can find one of those at parts store. I don't think I'd trust JB welding it. Let me see what I can find. Alright, so got my old R12, R22 gauges. It's been a while since they've been used. I've got two sets. I had to grab a few hoses from the other set. I don't intend to do it. And of course, you can see how long it's been since they've been used. One of the hoses twisted off, rubber. But we got some good hoses on it now. I don't have a fitting, hardly enough, for the high side. So we pulled the vacuum on the low side. I like to do it from both sides, but it's fine. We pull a vacuum from the low side, and we always charge it from the low side anyway. I would like to see the high side pressure, but I can't, so I don't have a fitting. Now, pulling a good vacuum. I did have some old R12 refrigerant oil. You can see this, this compressor's, it's a little oily and stuff. So I went ahead and added about an ounce of, I cracked this line up open. I put about an ounce of oil in the dryer. I figured some oil's leaked out over the years. and kind of want that compressor to last, so we gave it a little bit of oil. Like I said, pulling a vacuum. The way I'm going to charge it, because those cans have an R134 fitting, my vacuum pump has the old R12 style fitting on it, and so, and of course right now I'm using the R12 gauges with the fitting, so I don't need my, so I have an adapter for the this goes onto the vacuum pump, and then your R134 gauges go on here. And so what I've done is I've put the fitting on my R134 fill hose with my can fitting, and then this end will screw into my gauges. So I'm adapting a 134 hose with a filler to an R12 gauge set. And that's how I'm going to fill it. So after it's done filling, I'll cut the valves off, take the hose off the vacuum pump, put the R134 hose on, and I'll fill it like that. So that ought to work, and that keeps me from having to change out the fittings, because it doesn't have 134 in it. It hasn't been converted. The refrigerant I'm putting in is an R12 replacement. So, you know, along the line, I don't want somebody to come in here and see R134 gauges or fittings and fill it with 134, because it hasn't been converted. So, radiator looks, it's all right. It's a little dirty, but I think it'll be all right. I don't think it's plugged up too bad. So let's we'll let this pull a vacuum for about an hour or so, and while we do the rest of this. So since I had to go to the parts store to get that vacuum temperature switch, I went ahead and checked the rear wheel cylinders, and they're both froze up, both sides. So I went ahead and picked up, while I was at the parts store, picked up 2 rear wheel cylinders, and the brake shoes are okay. So I'm going to see if I can get the wheel cylinder out without undoing all the other brake stuff. I think I can manage to get it out of there. So we'll replace those, bleed the brakes, and should have good rear brakes then. And of course they said they had that ported vacuum switch. Got there and they couldn't find it, so they had to order it. So they'll have it in about 2 hours, so I'll have to go back to the parts store. But we can at least get this done, and we'll get the hoses on. It's looking like rain, so I'm going to go ahead and do the brakes first before I do the rest of the stuff. That way if I need to roll it into the shop, if it starts raining, I can push it in, you know, have the wheels back on it. So let's get this done. Alright, wheel cylinder replaced. Ended up undoing these top 2 springs just to kind of get things opened up a little bit, and left everything else together. And I'm letting it gravity bleed right now, and then I'll take my vacuum bleeder and bleed them. So there's the old one, froze up, junk. And let's get the other side done. Alright, brakes done. Now if it starts raining, I can at least push it in, or, you know, and get it inside. Bled and everything. So back on the front here, doing the belts, what I did, of course I took them all off and put all the new ones on. Ended up buying, most of them are Bando. I've had good luck with Bando belts, and I can normally get on Amazon really cheap. I did have to buy one Gates and Daco I really like, and starting to like the Bando. I've used them on quite a few vehicles now, and they've been really good belts. So, like I said, the AC belt, they didn't have the bando, so paid a little more and got the gates. But quality-wise, I mean, they all look really good. So I put 2 nuts back on the water pump, just because I want to tighten down. It's so easy to get in here and work without the fan shroud and the fan. I want to go ahead and tighten all the belts up, and then before I put the fan shroud and the fan back in. And then once I get all the belts tight, I can just take the 2 nuts off. So that's the plan. Let me get these things tensioned up, and they'll probably stretch a little bit, and then I'll have to tighten them up a little more later on. Yeah, probably not the smog pump one, because there's not much strain on that belt, but normally the alternator will start squealing, and the AC might, and the power steering might, so those might have to be adjusted again. We'll see. Depends on how much they stretch. They may not stretch.